Girl, look, we've had Hi, and welcome to today's episode of Conversations with Karen and Kat. We are live. I'm
Live.
Karen Scott Green,
And I'm Kat Hardrick.
and we are here today with Amelia Porter.
Yeah.
And Amelia is our local Gwinnett historian. She is a local for real. She's a graduate of Georgia Gwinnett College with a BA in American History and a master's in public administration from the University of North Georgia. You can't get more local than that.
I know, right? Facts. So today's episode, we everyone knows how much the Livsey family means a lot to Karen and Kat in our podcast. And Chad has been on our show before, and we want to let the community know that Mr. Livsey recently passed, and we want to send our love, our condolences, and our prayers to the Livsey family. And the Livsey families will always have a love seat here in Conversations with Karen and Kat. After they, the appropriate time for them, we will always have a space for them to come back on the show. But in the meantime, we wanted to just share just a little bit of light as to how the great impact the Livsey family has made on Gwinnett County. And we have Amelia Porter here. Amelia, can you please tell our listeners just a little bit about your background and how you landed in the space of Gwinnett County's historian?
Sure. Thanks, Kat. Yeah, I was appointed historian last year in November. It was an application process, and the previous historian had passed away back in September. He had had the role for over 50
Mm.
years.
Mm-hmm.
So he was he was around for a while. He wasn't a native though. I'm a native. So
Okay.
born and raised in Gwinnett County, went
Mm-hmm.
through K through 12 here and even up through my bachelor's degree in Gwinnett County.
All right.
Which it would have been impossible to do without Georgia Gwinnett College,
Mm-hmm.
which was established, I think 10 years before I got there. So it's relatively new and awesome. But yes, I was confirmed by the Board of Commissioners and then appointed by our Superior Court judge. And I have a background in history, like you said, a bachelor's degree, and it's my passion. It's what I love to do, love to talk about, especially Gwinnett.
Yes.
Because we have such a beautiful, unique story here that needs to be told. And part of that is the Promised Land and the part that the Livseys played, the Andersons, those families that are prominent from that Centerville area.
Good. So tell us a little bit about the history of Gwinnett that our listeners do not know. Shed some light on the historical facts about Gwinnett County.
Sure, just in general.
Yep. Just give us a bit about how Gwinnett got started.
Yeah, Gwinnett was founded in 1818. It was ceded from lands from Jackson County and the Cherokee Nation. So we
I didn't
are
know
also, yes, so we have land that was ceded from the Cherokees from a previous treaty with the nation. And we also have land that used to be part of the Creek or Muskogee Nation. So where the Promised Land is, that's southern part of the county was originally Creek, the Creek Nation, which they had ceded that territory quite a few years before Gwinnett was even a thing. And so we're actually, I believe it's today, December 15th, 1818. So today would be the anniversary of Gwinnett's founding.
Wow.
Yes.
18.
So that's 200 and 5 years? I can't keep
Look,
track anymore.
I know, right? Let's pull out a calculator. Look.
I know. But
Yeah.
yeah, and so we're named after Button Gwinnett. He was a signer of the Declaration of Independence. He was one of three
I
from
did know that
Georgia.
fact.
And
Right.
yes, yes. So he was one of three from Georgia. The other two counties that are near us were named after the other two signers, Lyman Hall and George Walton. So of
Okay.
course they're neighbors to us, Walton County and Hall County.
Okay.
And Button Gwinnett never stepped foot
I
in this
didn't know that
county.
about Hall and Walton County.
Yeah. So Gwinnett was never here. He never lived here. He never came here. He died in Savannah in a duel, and that was before Gwinnett was even thought of.
Mm.
So it was more of just an honorary thing. There are two statues for Button Gwinnett in his honor. One is in Savannah, I believe. I've not seen that one, but the second one is actually on top of the Mall of Georgia.
Oh, is
So
it?
so when you're driving through Buford and you look up, you'll see him up top of the Mall of Georgia.
Get out of here. I didn't know that either. Look at we learning some stuff here. Go ahead, girl.
Yeah, and so there was a pretty rural community here until about the 1960s, I would say. That's when we really started to expand and boom, and stuff. Definitely in the 80s and 90s. That's when we
Mhm.
got so many different beautiful cultures and people moving in and
Mhm.
transformed Gwinnett to be what it is today. Just a great melting pot of different cultures and communities that we all call Gwinnett home.
Yes. And we are the what? Second largest county in the state?
We are the second largest in size and population, I believe. Fulton County is first in population with the city of Atlanta, but we're
Mm-hmm.
right behind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And let me ask you this, Beaufort, Georgia. Um, I help me with the facts with Beaufort. When you said the Mall of Georgia or whatnot, don't do. Doesn't Beaufort have some historical component with this development in Beaufort? Are you familiar with?
Buford, yeah. Buford is been pretty independent, I would say, in
Mhm.
its growth versus the growth of Gwinnett. Um, I view
Mm.
Buford kind of independently of
Mhm.
Gwinnett, though they are part of. They have their own school system, that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Mhm.
But that really kicked off because of Bona Allen and the Allen family, the factories that they developed up there. They had their saddle, leather goods, shoes, things like that they developed up in Buford. And that really set that place apart
Mhm.
in terms of the wealth that it was bringing in. I just got over the flu, so my voice is maybe
Oh.
going on me, but
You're doing good.
and I was surprised that Buford never ended up our county seat, but there was a law back in the day that the county seat had to be the geographical center of the county. So that's
Mhm.
how we ended up with Lawrenceville because it is the geographical center. And where the historic courthouse sits today on the square is pretty much as center as you can get
Mhm.
with the county. So,
Mhm.
um, but yeah, that's pretty much a little highlight about Buford. So they're
Yeah.
known for their factories and some great stuff that came out of there.
Yeah.
Now, what is
We're
your
right beside.
understanding about what what is your understanding about the Livesey's family and the Promised Land and their history here in Gwinnett?
Sure, their contribution to our county's history is great. The Promised Land area was, of course, settled around the 1820s, shortly after the county was founded, by Thomas McGuire. He developed a cotton plantation. And of course, he didn't just grow cotton, it was a pretty self sustaining farm, like most in the area, where they raised their own animals. They had an orchard and they raised all kinds of, or grew all kinds of fruits and vegetables and things. But cotton was the cash crop, that was king. So that's what they had. And they had slaves for that plantation as well. And it was called the Promised Land after Thomas McGuire, who created the plantation, after his hopes and dreams for the future and for the wealthy soil that we hear, the fertile soil that we've got. And so that's where it started. And the Livseys came in around the 1920s. I can't remember the exact date, but it was Thomas Livsey's parents who purchased the plantation, which is a very unique story of its own. You don't see that very often, of a Black family being able to come from humble beginnings, being sharecroppers, be able to purchase a former plantation, and to develop a beautiful community that they did down there.
How many acres was it?
The original plantation, I think it was over 500 acres.
Wow.
I don't remember how much the Livseys ended up getting. I think it was around 100, but I'm not 100% on that. And so the Livseys, they had a farm as well. They farmed that land, and I think it was really Thomas Livsey who came in and developed the promised land that we know today. He came back, I think, in the 70s, once his father passed away, because he was born here, in the big house. Him and his siblings, and then he left and went up to up north and fought in the Korean War, and then came back and established the grocery store, the barber shop, and created the community that we know. And everything that I know about the Promised Land, I learned from him. So.
And it was my understanding. It was my understanding that Highway 124 used to run right there by
in front of their house,
which is now like Anderson Livsey Road. That's where 124 was, and it ran right by it ran right by, it's Anderson Livsey Road, and it ran right by the gas station and all of that. And so that was it was thriving. Like that was the heart of the community. And then 124 got moved. And as roads move, so does that traffic. So they weren't getting that steady traffic after that. But it was my understanding that was really the heart of the community when that road was running through there.
Yeah, the reason why we have our roads the way they are is that it's the easiest and most efficient way to get places. So like I've been doing some research lately on the Hightower Trail, which runs pretty close to the Promised Land, because it's the dividing line between DeKalb County and Gwinnett County. And that it's pretty much gone because we put our roads, our asphalt, right on top of it, because it's the most efficient way to get from A to B. And so 124 was realigned to help with that efficiency. But in the meantime, it also kind of took a hit to the Promised Land with diverting the traffic.
Can you speak to Lake Cheryl and the development of Lake Cheryl?
There's not much that I can say about that. I'm still trying to get all the facts about what's going on and especially with Thomas passing. I'm not too sure.
Oh yeah.
What's going to come out of that?
What the plans will be.
Well, I actually meant the origin, how the history how it coming about. Yes, ma'am.
How the lake was established. Yes.
Yes, we definitely don't want you to talk about future plans.
No, ma'am.
Well, we don't know what the future holds, that's for sure.
Right.
And it'll be interesting to see. I'm sad that Thomas won't be here to see it.
Right.
Because he was a pillar of that community and such a great advocate for it. But Lake Cheryl, I don't remember exactly when it was created, but it's a man-made lake. Any lake in Georgia is man-made. Lake Lanier, all that, they're not naturally occurring in Georgia. So I guess at some point they must have had to dam that area up. It had to have been, I believe, during Thomas's lifetime, because I remember him talking about it and how he used to go and stock it with fish, and that people would go down there and fish with him. I've heard from several people who grew up in the Snellville area who remember Thomas specifically because they would go to his land to fish.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know it is named after his daughter, Cheryl.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah. He always used to tell me, "You're named after my grandma."
That.
Because his grandma's name's Amelia.
Amelia. Ah,
Uh-huh. You know, those are the best facts when you can actually sit down and talk
Yeah.
to our elders and
Oh,
allow them
yeah.
to share with you their history bit by bit, and they tell you the same story over and over and over again. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
my first experience, because I had been here I don't know how many years, and I didn't even know about the promised land. Sadly, I did not know about the promised land. It was one of my girlfriends who shares my same name, and she was like, "Oh, you need to come out to the promised land." I was like, "What?" So when I went out there, I met Mother Livsey and just had the opportunity to have history right in front of you, tell you all the great stories and how they overcame so much and
Hmm.
did so much for the county, and
Hmm.
for their family and their community, that it made me very, very proud to be an African American. And this is a history that I had no idea even existed in the city in which I live in.
Right.
And it just really means a lot to me. And I just hope that all of our listeners and people far and wide look up the
Hmm.
Livsey family and continue to learn more about their history, because I'm sure that there are other families just like the Livseys who used to be enslaved, got their freedom, and build a thriving community. And sometimes we get stuck on the enslavement part and we don't
Hmm.
highlight, yes, being enslaved is a part of our history, but our growth and our intelligence and our ability to go beyond that needs to be highlighted as well. And the Livsey's family is definitely an example of that. Like, we have thousands of others, but this is one right here in our own backyard that we need to illuminate. So,
Exactly.
absolutely. And to further that, I also want to reiterate that next generation, actually the second generation
mhm.
of after Mr. Livesey, is also very active in
Mhm.
Gwinnett. His grandson, Chad Livesey,
Yes,
founded
Chad.
the Chad Livesey Project.
Woo-hoo! That's right.
His, 'cause his grandfather had been had adopted several streets in the Promised Land community, and he was doing the trash pickup and he was doing the cleanup on these streets. And I live in this community, and so Mr. Livesey was doing the cleanup of these adopted streets, and his grandson came back from New York and decided, his grandfather's getting old and he wanted to be involved and also be responsible for
Hmm.
his community. And so he started the Chad Livesey Project, where he's not only cleaning up around Promised Land and in the South Gwinnett area and does cleanups in conjunction with Gwinnett County, but he also does cleanups in Gwinnett County as well. So I
And
would,
Atlanta.
and Atlanta. So I would encourage anyone who wants to honor the legacy of Mr. Livesey to donate to the Chad Livesey Project. And for those who are listening, it's Chad, ChadLivsey project.com. So
Mhm.
please go donate to the Chad Livesey project.com, and to honor his grandfather's legacy of keeping this community clean, keeping
Mhm.
it preserved. And if you really care about Gwinnett County and the surrounding areas,
Mhm.
donate to that project. It's a very, very worthy cause. Chad has a
Yep.
nonprofit where he's doing this work. We've had him on, as Kat has said before, we've had him on this on our channel, where we were talking about his work, and he talked about his grandfather and the legacy
Mhm.
that his grandfather has passed down to him,
Yep.
and instilled in him the importance of community. So we just wanted to honor that work, that the family and their contributions to the county in just our small little way and in our small platform.
Yes, absolutely. Ditto, ditto. And sign up to volunteer. Because when we have
Yes,
them streets cleaning up, we need people to volunteer, man. It is work. It is work. And it truly takes a village. It truly takes a
yeah,
village.
Because
Yeah.
sometimes I pass him on the streets and he's out there by himself. I haven't been able to get out there as like I wanted to this year, but last year I was out there with him a few times.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to get back out there because he is out there sometimes, like I said, by himself, throwing them bags, getting that
Yep.
trash together.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely volunteer, donate.
Yeah. And encourage people to stop littering in the first place. Hello, that part. Sorry.
Yes.
That's a whole show in
Sorry.
itself.
I said it. I said it. Let's cut it out, people. But yeah, so
Yes.
Amelia, go ahead, Karen. What was you about to say? Because you know me.
No, I was just going to ask her um, if there is anything that the historical society has planned, or if there's anything that's going to be donated or anything like that to the historical society in honor of Mr. Livesey or the family to about his life. Are you aware of anything?
Not that I'm aware of, but I can't speak for the Historical Society. I am only a
Okay.
member of the Historical Society. The county historian is separate
Okay.
from the
Yeah.
Historical
Got you.
Society. I'm not sure if they're planning anything, but
Okay.
I know Thomas had always talked about how he had a lot of historical furniture and antiques and things that he wanted to go along with the house. So we'll see if that
Okay.
happens, but I would love to see that.
Absolutely.
I like I said, I live right in that community. I live like I'm a block up
A
from
rock
the
throw. You a rock throw away.
Mhm.
Your screen froze, sister.
back to its
So
original glory.
say it again, sister.
My
Your
internet,
screen.
my internet's being wonky. I was just saying I live right by that community, and I would like to. I'm anxiously anticipating the restoration of that house because I would love to see, you know, the original artifacts and those sort of things in home restored.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yes, I think we all
waiting
are. It'll
anxiously.
be beautiful when it's done.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yep.
So I also wanted to share with the community the life celebration services for tomorrow. Karen, do you have that address and so
I
forth?
do.
So we would love
I
to just
do.
share that with our listeners. We do have a life celebration for Mr. Livesey tomorrow, December the 16th. The viewing is at 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. The service begins at 11 a.m. at New Bethel AME Church, which is located at 8350 Rockbridge Road in Lithonia, Georgia. So we wanted to make sure we share that. It's on our screen, but for people who are listening, viewing begins at 10 a.m. and the services begin at 11 a.m. at New Bethel AME Church. So we do
And
want to
let,
send our love, prayers, and condolences to the family and to keep everyone lifted up in prayer.
absolutely. And I just want to say that he was known as the mayor
Yeah,
of the Promised Land community.
yeah.
Yes, yes, he
And
was.
when everyone was running for office, they all came over to Anderson Lindsay Road to
Yeah.
go get his approval, to go get his endorsement.
Hmm.
So hopefully those same folks will come to honor his life
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow, who
They were
came to
all over
sit
his
on his
car.
couch.
Their stickers.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes,
Amen. So
absolutely,
I'm sure it will be
absolutely.
standing room only, inside and out. So
Oh, I'm thinking
mm-hmm,
it's gonna be. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
he was
Looking
such a
forward to
legend,
that.
and that I hope that he is well honored. Um, I know my
Absolutely.
experiences with him were great. I used to talk with him once a month, if not more. I
Wow.
was seeing him, talking with him, so he's going to be sorely missed.
Mm, yeah.
Tell us a Thomas Livsey story. Tell us a story.
Oh man, okay. So I think my favorite story is when I first met him.
Mm,
Because he's such a character, so he always makes a very memorable impression.
mm,
And I had just started dipping my toes into county history
mm,
and expressing, my interest and my passion in it. And I think it was 2018, the year of the bicentennial. I was doing a tour of southern Gwinnett, and we had a bus full of people that we drove up to the Promised Land, and we drove onto the driveway. We couldn't go in it. Of course, it's not, you're not able to go inside. It's a hazard, but the county had just purchased it, I think, the year prior. So it was a new stop, and we all got out of the bus or sitting there talking about it. And he comes riding up on his riding lawnmower, just
He
like his
did.
wheelchair from the Promised Land.
Everybody know that lawnmower.
Transportation. He comes right on up on that, and he derailed the rest of our tour because we spent so long talking with him, because he was just a wealth of knowledge of local history of that area. And I have a picture of that day where he was on the riding lawnmower, and he had met a couple of descendants from the McGuires. So that was very interesting to see that, and them shaking hands. So that was my first impression of Thomas, and from that day on.
Wow. Yeah, if you have that picture, girl, you may want to send it to us so we could post it.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
I'm planning to do a tribute post to Thomas. So I'll probably include that.
Oh, that's gonna be so nice.
Yeah.
Karen, what's your story?
Just seeing him in the neighborhood on that riding lawnmower. He would be up. He would be on Toledo Trail. He would be on Lee Road, on the sides, on that riding lawnmower. And I'd pass him. I'd always see him at the post office. Not on the riding lawnmower. He'd be in his car. But I would usually run into him at the post office, and he would love for you to stop and ask him something about the Promised Land, or he could talk to you for like the longest time. I used to sometimes run into him in court and sit and talk to him. He would sit and talk about the Promised Land, because I'm like, oh, I live right over there, but I would see him on that riding lawnmower.
Yeah, I told him one time, I was like, I was born in Snellville, Mr. Livsey. And he said, you were? So you were right next to me. You're right. We're neighbors.
Oh, yeah, that's a blessing. He definitely will be missed, but yes. So I want to thank you.
There's an African proverb that says, when an old man dies, a library burns to the ground. I said that at my father's funeral because there is a wealth of information, knowledge, and history that if it is not shared, it leaves with them. And certainly with the transition of Mr. Livsey, that knowledge, that library, it will be gone. And he's taking it with him. But we thank him for the information that he did pass along, and the time that that his family and that the state did have him.
And that's why I do believe that whenever you have an opportunity to speak to an elder, to sit down and do it. Sit down and do it, because they have so much information. I mean, to be here for 90 plus years, that's a wealth of information. Y'all talk about audible books. There you go, right there. Get you some tea. You know what I'm saying? And just and they tell you a plethora of information, and it's priceless, and you'll never be able to get that in a textbook. No. So it's definitely, we have to cherish our elders, and sit down and so what I started doing in my family with my elders was I started recording our conversations.
Good,
so that way you can start transcribing and keeping that history, and but it was very, very beneficial to me and my family later in life, where we were able to just kind of record some of these things. And I did it in the last maybe 5 years, just every time they tell you, because a lot of the stories they tell you over and over again is in your head, because they tell you the same thing. Yeah, it was a Tuesday at 2 p.m. I mean, they could tell it, and so you have that in the back of your mind. But for us, sometimes you don't remember it in its totality. So just to have it recorded so you could tell the next generation and the next generation, so be your own historian in your own family,
Yeah.
you know.
Exactly. Yes.
Mhm.
Oral history or oral tradition is my favorite. That's where I find so much interesting things to learn,
Yes.
especially about Gwinnett.
Mhm.
That's how I've learned a lot. Is just from listening to people and
Mhm.
yeah, their
Sitting
stories.
at your feet.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. This is
I love it.
yes.
Yeah. Amelia, thank you so much for joining us on this
Of course.
episode of Conversations with Karen and Kat. We thank you so much, because it was so important to us that we had this opportunity to talk about his life
Mhm.
and, just about the contribution that this family made
Mhm.
to, Gwinnett County.
Yes.
And, you know,
You about to
yes,
show us a little clip?
I was, yeah, well, not a clip, but I was just going to share the screen.
Yeah.
Um,
Go ahead, girl. Share
let's
that
see
screen.
if it
Let's get
wants to act right.
let's get a drum roll, please. Yes.
All right,
Share the
there
screen.
we go. Yes.
Oh yes.
Very good.
As
Yeah.
we get ready to lay Mr. Livesey to rest, we want everyone to keep the Livesey family in prayer,
Yeah.
to uplift them. If you know Chad, his aunt, or any of the other cousins, please just reach out to them, a card, a word,
Mhm.
even if it's just, I'm thinking of you. That
That's
means a lot.
or Mother Livsey, anybody in the
Yes,
family.
Hmm.
yes. As always. Did you want to say anything else, Kat?
No, we're just praying and lifting them up. Thank you, Amelia, so much for coming on the show.
Yeah. Thank
Absolutely.
you
Thank you
guys.
so much for sharing with us. As always, we want to thank you for joining us on this episode of Conversations with Karen and Kat.
Well, we are impacting the world one conversation at a time.